Hey, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of Christian Geeks Classic Rockcast, where we're going to spend a little bit of time just talking about the life and legacy of Michael Bloodgood, who passed away recently.
Yeah, we wanted to do just a special little episode. We don't have any interviews with Michael. We're just going to talk a little bit about our experience and a little bit of our background with the band. For me, as a bass player who wrote songs, Michael Bloodgood was a hero of mine. I mean, there was no one like him in Christian music in the sense of he wasn't quite the front man of the band, but he and Les were the major players of that band, especially when David Zafiro left. So he and Les Carlson were the main people of that band. And as a bass player, he was a part of the songwriting and the production, and he was a major part of the look and the direction of the band. And that's with the little that I did in the 80s and the early 90s with the heavier music. That was kind of my role in the band. I did a lot of the songwriting, a lot of the lyric writing, not all of it. And I loved being collaborative in a lot of that too, but I'm just a very prolific writer in a lot of ways. Even as an author, someone the other day was like, I met somebody at a conference recently and they're like, how much are you writing? And I talked about all that I'm writing. And they're like, how do you find time for all that? I'm just a prolific writer when it comes to some of that. And I was the same way as a songwriter. So anyway, there was just a lot of it that I really related to with Michael. And I always appreciated the interviews that I ever heard with him. When you watch the documentary, which we're going to put a link on our show notes and different stuff on our description, we're going to put some links about buying it or getting it. You can pre-order it on iTunes right now, so you can pre-order The Trenches of Rock, which is really like 3 or 4 years old now. It's finally getting to streaming.
Right.
And Steve and I, one of the few times, we didn't really hang out, but we kind of hung out. One of the few times we did was when we went to go see Trenches of Rock in a theater as a film festival down close to Atlanta somewhere. Do you remember where it was? I'm trying to remember exactly where it was.
It was down in, down near Decatur, that area.
That's what I thought. I thought it was down near Decatur. And that was just such a special time. And I think my brother went with me, and we got to meet Michael, and we got to talk to his son, who produced and directed, I think, and made that film. And for me and Steve, and to a large degree me, because I'm a bass player and that was the music that I played. It was such a great reminder of all the different all the drama that was going on through the 80s, where there were a lot of people in the Christian culture. I'm not going to say that it was right, obviously, but there was a lot of people in the Christian culture that really believed that you could not be Christian and listen to, much less play this music. And even I think the Jesus Music documentary said something about how, the Christian metal was like, there was like the underground, and then there was like the basement, and then there was like the dungeon of Christian music was like. And when I was watching the Jesus Music with my kids, I was like, that's where your dad was. I was in the dungeon. But and I've talked about this often on the podcast, that for that time, I was really into a lot of the secular music. And so for me, I'm not going to say it saved me, but it really helped me to have quality music that was heavy, that was in the style that I loved, and that had such great messages to it. Like Michael Bloodgood was a pastor. Like he pastored a church out of Seattle, and I don't know how big the church was, but I mean, it's not like, I mean, they were serious students of the Bible. They were very serious about their Christian walk. They were very serious about their behavior and who they were as people, and that just came across so much. And they were along, probably after Stryper, Bloodgood was kind of the next main pioneer, and Michael Bloodgood was a big part of that. I listened to Chris Jericho's podcast today, and if you've never listened to Talk is Jericho, it really is a great podcast because he basically talks about anything he just wants to. Like some of it's wrestling, some of it's horror movies, like it's whatever he likes. And but if Chris Jericho has his own band, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's Fozzy.
Come on, man.
And I actually went to high school with the guitar player, Rich Ward. I went to high school with him. Great. He was a great guitar player then too. And anyway, but he has done several episodes on Christian rock, and he hosted the Bloodgood White Cross show that happened right before, like, it's a Saturday night, and then Sunday, the next day, is when Michael had the stroke. And so I listened to that today, and just was just reminded of a lot of what is in the documentary. But Michael Bloodgood, on that interview, the question came up, would you have done anything different looking back? And Michael Bloodgood said, I prayed about this band doing this for a year and a half before I did it.
Wow.
In other words, like it wasn't just like, I want to rock and I'll just put Christian on it. Like Les Carlson had given up on music. He had done plays and music, and when he came to the Lord, he was just roofing. Like he was just working a regular job, and they almost had to be drugged back into music. Like that was like, is this really what you want us to do, God? And he just confirmed it with them. And so all of that, I think, came through in the music, and they were very evangelical, and they were always about people. And the music, I think, still holds up. So much of it, I think, Out of the Darkness. I know we did Detonation as the album that we chose. I think Detonation is one of the best metal albums out there. I think Out of the Darkness is right up there, if not right below it, in my opinion. Just some great albums, that music that they put out, great messages, great musicianship, high quality stuff, but they had the heart to go with it. That, again, it was really important for me at that time, and a great example of, I'm a songwriter, I'm a bass player, I want to play this kind of music. And it was a great sort of standard for me going into it. So I highly recommend that that Talk is Jericho episode. Listening to that, there's a lot more information on there. I'm not going to repeat it all, but there's a lot of great stuff on there. There's a more recent interview of over the last few days with Les Carlson that gets a little emotional, and I highly recommend it for people. But I just wanted to just talk through a little bit about our experience and how much I appreciate and we appreciate Bloodgood and Michael, and what a loss it's been. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I look back, I have to go back to, like 1986 when their self-titled album dropped. And it was just one of the same, in like the youth group I was in, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this band, they were incredible, because it's like all we really had, like you said, was Stryper at that point.
Right.
And some, some other sort of undergroundy type bands that were, cassettes passed around and that sort of thing. But really it's like, so they kind of came out of the gate, and you realize as soon as you pop that thing in, these guys they're very serious about what they do. Number one, they're really good at what they do. And number two, they don't mince words. They're highly, like you said, highly evangelical. They don't mind telling you like it is. And it's funny because I think our next podcast, we're going to talk about the choir, and they take a very different approach. But I think both are completely genuine in what they do.
Right.
And they're not, in my opinion, they're not any less genuine or artistic in how they approach things. They're just two completely different approaches to music,
Sure.
stylistically and everything else. But
Agreed.
but with Michael, and this is kind of a point I want to make, is um he was, in my mind, larger than life. I mean, it's like he had that presence,
Yeah.
if you look at all the band pic photos, when I was a teenager back in the 80s and just looking at, like they were like rock gods in a lot of ways to me. They were just, and Michael's very, he had a great presence about him, but man, it's like meeting him in person
Mm-hmm.
and talking to him. You could not have asked for a sweeter, more
Right.
approachable, more genuine, more humble person to talk to. And that it's always, and some of the guys that we've interviewed on this podcast so far have been that way as well. When you're talking to them, you're like, okay, you're nothing like the traditional rock star. Now, granted, the people that we talk to aren't what I consider mainstream rock stars, but it's like, again, in my brain, Michael Bloodgood is this larger than life persona. And to have him just be like the nicest guy in the entire world for the 15, 20 minutes we got to shoot the breeze with him
Right.
was great. And the thing is, I know Les is the same way. I mean, we
Right.
haven't had the opportunity to meet him, but it's like but that band, I mean, and those two, like you said, those are the two central figures in the band, the two main songwriters, the two constants from the beginning all the way to the very end. And so it's to me, it's we talked to Britt and I talked about this. It's like, should we do this special, just discussion about it? And I think that somebody like Michael warrants a special little episode to talk about, because he was such a pillar of Christian rock. I mean, he's one of the, I mean, if we had been doing this podcast when Dana Key passed away, I think we'd probably do the same thing. And, and a lot of those, and hopefully we won't have to do a lot of these going forward, but
amen.
But it's, it's such a big loss for Christian rock and Christian metal. And, and with that, with his passing, I mean, and Les Carlson came out the other day and basically said, like, with Michael's passing, Bloodgood is no more, and there will never be any more Bloodgood. And it's obvious. I mean, it seems obvious because it's his band's namesake, right? So, but and that's what I would expect. But I think, hearing that is just kind of, because I keep thinking, you keep getting these bands sort of coming back. You got Fear Not coming back and recording an album. You got, all these bands kind of coming back and redoing, or not redoing, but doing new things. And that's exciting. So there's something final about just like one of our favorite bands going back all the way to the mid 80s is never going to happen again. And that there's something sad about that, but there's also, I mean, there's something exciting for Michael, because, he's moved on, and
he's not complaining.
He's not complaining. Yeah, he's
he's not the one complaining.
No, it's I mean, it's and I know that it's tough on the family. It's tough on the band. It's tough on the fans. But but he's in glory. So we got that to rejoice right now. So,
well, and so it is tragic for a lot of different reasons. They had written some new material. They were going to put some new material out, which they still will put that material out. Les is going to continue singing and writing, and he's going to continue working with Paul Jackson. So it's going to be good stuff. And that, that guy's an amazing guitar player and writer. And so they will sound similar, and it will be good. But it is sad that it was like they were just getting back into it after COVID and after everything, and they had this huge show, and Chris Jericho was the host and sang on stage, and it was just oh. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm in the middle of something. I can't really talk right now.
What was that?
Poor kid. It's 8:30 and he's ringing on my doorbell at 8:30. All right, hold on. Where was I? Oh, it's tragic.
Chris Jericho hosting.
Yeah. Chris Jericho was hosting the show, and there was excitement about they were going to get this thing back started again. You know, they hadn't done an album since that Dangerously Close album, which had been years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of excitement, and so it's tragic. It's sad for his family. You know, his wife wasn't able to be there those last couple of days because he was in the hospital. He had COVID. COVID was part of how much of it, I don't know, but I know he got COVID, and I don't know exactly how all that worked. I know his body was probably already kind of run down from the stroke and some of the other stuff. So it's just so much of it is sad. But one of the things that I'm taking away from this is, and Les Carlson said it on the interview that I listened to today. And the Bible said it's better to go to a house of mourning than a house of feasting, because it's in Ecclesiastes or maybe Proverbs, but because in a house of mourning, people take note. The living take note. In other words, like, what kind of life are we leading? What kind of life? What kind of legacy are we leaving behind? And good God, wouldn't we all love to leave a legacy like Michael Bloodgood has left?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like you made a great point that I just want to reiterate for people to kind of put it together, what you were saying, that here you had a person who had a commanding presence, but was also extremely humble and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that an odd combination? Like, I didn't really think about it till you kind of put it that way. But like, he had this amazing, like, you knew he was in the room. Like, it wasn't like he was a wallflower, you know, like off in the corner, like didn't want to talk to people. He was outgoing. He was talking with you, but he was charismatic, but he wasn't overbearing. It wasn't prideful. Like, you got this great spirit from him, you know, like this great vibe. And just what a legacy of consistency throughout his life. You know, he went through hard times. Like the documentary went through it. Like, they went through some hard times. But the secret is he knew he was doing what God had called him to do, and he stayed faithful to that. And out of that he wasn't trying to leave a legacy. He was trying to do what God called him to do. And because he did that and stayed faithful to his wife and his family, and all of that he's leaving this sort of legacy behind him, that people will talk about him like this. Like, people aren't just, you know how sometimes people pass away and you're like, well, we don't really know. He's probably like they're trying to be nice, but they weren't perfect. But like what an amazing thing to get to the end of your life and people are like, this is so sad, and just have great things to say about you. Like, whether it's fans, whether it's a wrestler, anybody who meets you, like, it's just to have those sort of, and then your children to rise up and call you blessed, and that you were their hero too. Like, there's so much of that is not that you aspire to those things specifically, but I really do think it's important to note that it didn't come about without a lot of prayer and a lot of dedication to God first. And these other things are just kind of coming out of it. I mean, like, I don't know how long he was married, but he was married like even when they started Bloodgood, I think.
Oh yeah. He's been married a long, I think it was 47 years or something. It was close to 50 years. I think he was married.
All of that is amazing.
Well, and to your point, it's like our witness a lot of times is relative to the fruit that we're able to, exhibit. So it's like, so you're talking about I know his family. I mean, his family is super close. They're scattered all over the country, but I'm friends with a couple, with his sons and, on Facebook and of course him. And they're it's like, you can just tell that, and the simple fact that you and I are sitting here talking about it is fruit. I mean, there's fruit there, and probably hundreds of thousands of albums they sold over the years.
Right.
There's fruit there. I mean, and it continues to spread. So
all over the world too, man. I mean, they did tours in Europe, and they were, Michael Sweet, who admits he never listens to Christian music, posted about him, right? I mean, like this, he had an influence that was so godly and positive, and he was a great musician, and they were very serious about that side of it. So I'm sad, and it was heartbreaking because, we were on a message with one of our fans. We were on a message group with one of our fans, and he was telling us he liked, the interview with Ray Power and all that stuff. And we were talking about Michael Bloodgood, and I was like, what was so shocking is, like, he was going home, like he was getting better. He was talking, he was recovering. And I don't know all that happened. I don't know all the details, but that just kind of made it more of a shock. And we are shocked and saddened, but I'm so glad that so many people are speaking out about how great he was. And I think it's a genuine thing. And just for me, he was such a personal hero because, like I said, as a musician and a Christian and a songwriter, and so influential for me. And I know so many. I'm not alone. So rest in peace. I know he is. He's actually he's probably partying up there like you won't believe. And like I said, he's not complaining for sure.
Yeah. It's like Daniel Band once said, there's a party in heaven, the bread is unleavened, the tree of life is growing fine.
There you go.
Sorry, I don't know why to throw Daniel Band in there. But anyway, folks, if you can, I will put a link in the show notes to their Give, Send, Go, which helps their family pay off medical bills.
Right. I
think if you have the wherewithal to give, a couple of bucks, if you can throw them whatever you can, they would be extremely appreciative. Because, as we all know, living on a musician's salary, a pastor's salary, sometimes those things don't go super far. So I know that they would be really blessed if you could help out. So check out the show notes, and of course, we'll put some links to where you can connect with Les Carlson and his stuff, because I know that he's going to be releasing some new music and some of the Bloodgood music that Michael helped write and put together that they were planning to release. So
he's going to be playing at that show in Versailles.
Yeah. So he'll be up there. He'll be up there doing that, and I know they'll do some Bloodgood stuff too.
And and I think we'll put a link too, also, of how to maybe pre-order the digital version, or just tell you to go buy it off of Amazon. I think you can buy the physical copy, right? I think you can buy a physical copy somewhere.
Yeah, and I can't reiterate enough how good that documentary is.
It's so amazing.
And it doesn't matter if it was made 7 years ago. The thing is the subject matter is like 35 years old, pretty much, 30 to 35 years old. And the story is amazing. And there's so much stuff that you just never knew about Bloodgood that gets revealed in there. So it's good stuff. So I would encourage you to check all that stuff out, and just check the show notes. And once again, Michael Bloodgood will be missed, but like we said, he's partying in heaven and having a good time, and probably, I know he misses. I don't know if he misses. I don't know what's like in heaven. I'm not even going to venture a guess, but we miss him down here for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yep.